with our brothers and our sisters. Together we will stand. There is power in our union.
Welcome to the second edition of the Long Island Fed News with John Durso and Roger Clayman, a monthly podcast from the Long Island Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO. Today, we're fortunate to have with us a special guest, our Political and Communications Director, Ryan Stanton. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks for having me, John.
Happy to have you here. So, Roger, things are getting closer and closer.
Yes.
We are a week away today from our election, and talk to me about it.
Well, John, thank you. Good morning. Ryan, thanks for being with us. We call this classing up the operation or fact-based reporting. That's why we have Ryan. The election's just a week away, and, most of the issues have been discussed. We know what's going on out there, what people are thinking. Maybe we don't hear as much about the issues that affect working people as we would like. But we do know that Biden is in the lead. He's on a national basis, which means a little bit, not a lot. We know that Biden has leads in these battleground states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And if Biden can hold those states and win all the states that Clinton won, he wins the election. Trump does have an opportunity, even if he were lost those states, if he were to hold on to Florida, Arizona, and North Carolina and flip over Nevada and New Hampshire, he's got a road to winning the election. So, we have to remember that Trump only won those states, those battleground states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin by 79,000 votes last time. So we know that he can easily win it. He can also easily lose it. Clinton's lead was down to 4 points 9 days before the election, and now at the same point, Biden is up by 9 to 10 points in the national polls, which mean a little bit. So it means that we have to keep our foot on the pedal, and particularly the AFL-CIO work in those states is very important. But, John, I was thinking about these are just numbers, and do they make you feel confident about what's about to happen? And what do you say to your members? How are you communicating with them about getting out to vote and what this all means?
Well, first of all, I don't think that Steve Kanaki from MSNBC has anything on you the way you just broke down all those numbers. All right. But, I'm still recovering from the last election about all the poll numbers. All right. So I'm not putting any faith in any of the poll numbers. They tell us that Biden is ahead nationally 8, 9, 10, depending upon what it is. But until it's over, until the electors have cast their ballots, I'm not counting on anything. So I'm very concerned. We are communicating every day with our membership. Well, our staff, led by Nikki Capeman in our political department, has been reaching out daily, making phone calls, doing postcards, doing text messaging, because we're not taking anything for granted. Not in any race, whether it be here on Long Island, in the state, or across the country. We've been spending time reaching out to some of the battleground states. But until this election is done, until the voting ends, we are not stopping, and we are communicating to our members about the hot button issues for us. When we communicate with our retirees, we're talking about the pension, we're talking about health care, about what's going on with the various proposals that we want to make to improve health care. But the fact that the Trump administration is in court trying to take away their health care, trying to take away the protections of under ACA for pre-existing conditions. And when you talk to senior citizens, or you talk to families, those are key issues. We don't even get into all the different things that he has done to hurt labor unions. But this is, I don't care what anybody says, this is going to be a tight race. And so we're just keeping the pressure on.
Yeah, Ryan, what is the AFL-CIO program for communicating with our members?
So with COVID-19, a lot's changed this year around the world, and I'm sure that's apparent to everybody listening. But, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Our program, while at first glance may appear a little bit different, we still work with all of our local unions across the Federation. And, everybody is doing their best to engage their members, which is something we do cycle after cycle. The mechanics of that haven't changed dramatically. Obviously, we're limited in the type of in-person communications we can be doing. Traditionally, when people think of the labor movement engaged politically, they think of folks going door to door, having boots on the ground, and mobilizing our activists to engage fellow members. This year is slightly different in that we're taking those activists, we're channeling their energy, and we're doing it through virtual means. So we have virtual phone banks going on. Each local union may be doing those independent of our federation, but where we have larger locals with massive numbers in terms of membership, they may not have capacity when it comes to activism. And that's where, as a movement, when we have consensus, when we're all together, mobilizing and engaged on advocating for candidates that are going to advocate for us, we're able to leverage the activism of some smaller locals and use the tools like virtual phone banking, text banking, and running a mail program, which we traditionally do, to engage the other members across the union movement that we might not otherwise be able to connect with. So while, again, some things are a little bit different, the tools are a little bit different, the methodology is very much the same. It's engaging our members, talking to them about what's important to them, how it affects them and their families, and making sure once early voting starts, which is just a few days ago, all the way through to Election Day, making sure we reach every last union member possible.
This concept of engaging with the members is an interesting one this time, and I've talked to union leaders who don't relish the ideas of getting into a conversation with their members because of the very strong feelings about Trump versus not Trump. People are sometimes overlooking things that may not be in their interests from our perspective because they have an identification with him. And I think we put into practice some things we've learned over the years, John. We try not to tell our members how to vote. We try to talk about the issues that affect them and their families. Has that been something that you've experienced with your members as you talk to them about what's important?
Well, we talk to them about the important issues of the day, that how it affects them and how it affects them on their job, whether it be OSHA violations that have gone unanswered, that the weakening of the health and safety rules, or the weakening of the National Labor Relations Board. We talk about that and all of those things that have occurred under the Trump administration, where they've gutted all of these things. But, this election is, so many people have taken very personally. People who love Trump, which boggles my mind, but still they do, and that's their right. But they take it very personally. And the people who support and defend Joe Biden and want to see him in there. So it's not even a matter of people being in neutral. They are in defined camps, and it's hard to change their minds. So it becomes very uncomfortable, whether you're talking to our members or, quite frankly, for me, members of my family. There are members of my family. I love them dearly, but I've told them I'll talk to you after the election because who wants to fight all the time? But the truth of the matter is that we've tried to educate our members on what is best in their best interest. And so in this particular case, we are urging them to make sure they go out and vote for Biden, because over the past 3.5 years, the work that Trump has done to undermine the labor movement and the issues that we face cause us to have to take this affirmative action toward Biden.
You know, it's interesting that with these issues that we try to bring forward for our members, that really what's come forward as the major issue in this campaign is the virus. And that's around us, and it's a part of our lives, something we can't change. And what seems to be catching on with the public is that Trump has done everything wrong with the virus. He's discouraged mask wearing. He never rolled out any kind of contact tracing program. He didn't do anything to provide any guidance about protecting nursing home people who are confined to nursing homes. He didn't provide any steady advice and reliable advice that was consistent to the states. And he just handed them the responsibility and said, go figure it out, because I don't have a clue. He just downplayed the virus and resisted business closing because he wanted to keep this whole economy roaring, which was really to his benefit. If the economy had probably been functioning on the level that it was before the virus, it would have been harder to make a case against him for president. But, you know, people got a taste of his incompetence. And this is really driving a lot of what's going on in the election.
Absolutely. And when we come back from break, we'll continue this a little bit more. This is Long Island Fed News with John Durso and Roger Clayman, a monthly podcast from the Long Island Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO.
2016, we took a chance on Donald Trump. Over the last 4 years, all Trump has done is make things worse.
It will climb up towards 20% by next month.
The latest report shows unemployment has already climbed to nearly 15%, and more than 20 million Americans lost their jobs last month.
He made it more dangerous to go to work by cutting OSHA inspections and getting rid of important safety regulations. He tried to eliminate federal pensions 3 times. He put a PACO strikebreaker on the National Labor Relations Board, and then used the board to ban unions from bargaining COVID safety measures.
It's also more deadly than your strenuous flus.
He attacked union leaders.
Because the heads of the union are not honest people. They're not honest. They're not honest, and they ought to lower your dues.
He attacked members and veterans who work at the VA, calling them sadistic thieves.
We had a lot of bad people in the VA. People that were sadistic, people that stole.
And failed to protect students and teachers returning to school. Plus, he announced his support for right to work and appointed the deciding vote on the Supreme Court that made public sector workplaces open shop.
Well, I think right to work is a good thing.
If this is what he did in his first 4 years, imagine what he could do with 4 more.
UCompac is responsible for the contents of this ad.
There's no Democratic Party way to teach a class,
or a Republican Party method for instruction.
When teaching civic involvement, there's only an American way to be part of the larger solution to preserve the promise that democracy delivers.
As educators, we provide students with a model of the importance of character and community. So vote.
Be the change this November, and show your children firsthand how democracy works.
LongIslandTeachers.org.
Teacher leaders in the community.
Welcome back to Long Island Fed News with John Durso and Roger Clayman, a monthly podcast from the Long Island Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO. And as I said before, we are very happy to have with us today Ryan Stanton, our Political and Communications Director from the Long Island Federation of Labor. Roger, before we went to break, we were talking about the gross incompetence of Donald Trump. And on this particular instance, we're talking about his lack of leadership on COVID. So please pick up where you left off.
Well, the inability to put together a program to keep America safe has killed our economy as well as our confidence in our ability as a nation to respond to an emergency. And, as we get closer to the election, we kind of kept our eyes on the passage of the HEROES Act, which would be, in many ways, which passed in the House of Representatives. We thought that would help working Americans, and in fact, we're quite certain that it would. But the Senate instead chose to focus on packing the Supreme Court, which they did last night with one more Trump pick, an ultra-conservative. But if we talk about Congress, what are the things that you think are most urgently needed to get done? And I don't know if it's going to happen, but safety is a very important thing. And maybe, Ryan, you could give us some info about what we need in the way of safety legislation, and particularly a shop that has been a kind of a shining example of how to do it wrong, a company called Quality King.
Yeah, so just addressing the first part of your question here, how do we achieve safety in the workplace? I think it starts with the PRO Act. The PRO Act is a piece of legislative policy that the labor movement has supported, has advocated for, that the House of Representatives has taken up and passed. Unfortunately, we have a number of Republicans, some of whom reside here on Long Island, and Congressman Lee Zeldin, who voted against that. And how does that tie to safety? The PRO Act would be the first major and significant rewrite of labor law in the United States of America in decades. And at a time when we know that health and safety is vital in the workplace as we face a global pandemic, there's no stronger voice than the labor movement for working people in this country. And so in order to have a strong voice in the workplace, we need a 21st century labor law. And that's something that is severely lacking. And that helps guide our decision making and helps guide who it is we support in local, state, and federal elections. And then taking it a step further, you raised another piece of legislation in the HEROES Act that is really vital to the health and safety of working Americans. It outlines, a number of protocols and protections that need to be implemented and put in place that will hold companies and employers accountable. There's been no accountability. In fact, regulations have been rolled back one after another under the current administration. And as was alluded to earlier in our podcast, there have been a number of OSHA violations that have gone unanswered. And that is by design. Over decades, we've seen OSHA underfunded. And the reality is, when you underfund a government agency, it just does not have the capacity to address exactly what it is it's meant to address. And in this case, it's the health and safety standards being upheld in the workplace. So it might be great, it might be wonderful that we have good laws on the books in some instances, whether it's the state or federal level. But if we don't have the resources necessary to actually employ folks in those agencies, they're not able to do the job they're meant to do. And we've seen that here on Long Island all too frequently. You referenced a case going on right now with an employer by the name of Quality King. They've received a number of public benefits, and the union movement believes that when you receive public benefits, you have a public responsibility. And beyond that, I think any decent American would agree that health and safety in the workplace is not something that really should have to be fought for, and yet we still find ourselves here having this discussion. From the beginning of the pandemic, Quality King was totally lacking in transparency with the local union, UFCW 2013, in the number of outbreak cases, or the number of cases they had, positive test results, the number of workers that were forced to quarantine just to keep others safe, and not really communicating with the local union. They, to date, as far as I know, have not had a professional cleaning come in and ensure that the workplace is safe. And so as we see other employers and good actors, meeting the moment and doing the right thing, we're also seeing employers failing to do so, and Quality King is an example of that.
Well, let me just jump in there, because with Quality King, not only have they just stuck their finger in the eye of the workers and the union and the community and the leaders, in particular State Senator Monica Martinez, who has been helping lead the fight to protect those workers. But in the middle of negotiations, they fired more than half a dozen of the leaders within the operation during negotiations. They have done everything possible to flaunt our labor laws and the OSHA laws. When you talk about a bad actor, when you talk about somebody who is an example of what is wrong with our labor laws, with enforcement, and with OSHA, Quality King is that example. They could care less about their employees. They look at them as if they were widgets instead of the people who make the money for them. They are a disgraceful organization.
John, I feel like we've said this before many times, but I think it feels so true now. I can't think of a time when it would be more important for workers to have a voice in the workplace. And in many very small ways that most of the public doesn't see, that voice has been rolled back, curtailed, silenced, and workers face firings now for what we used to think was protected action under the law, even when they have a union already. This has been the legacy of this administration. And I saw in the paper this morning that Trump spoke for 90 minutes in Wisconsin, and he lied 131 times. Pretty good.
It was a light day for him.
Oh, it was a light day.
It was a light day for him. Just because we are the labor movement. We support Republicans, we support Democrats, we support people who support us. And this is in the 15 years, Roger, you and I have been leading the Long Island Fed. We have never been as engaged with the politics as we are this time, because it is so vital. It is really about the basic rights for labor. And you mentioned before the HEROES Act. There are things in that act to protect pensions, to protect America's workers' pension plans that the Senate has refused to take up. Now I heard today that McConnell said we're heading home and we're not doing anything. So America once again gets the short end of the stick, because McConnell will not do anything to help America's working people. And quite frankly, when he has allies like Lee Zeldin in the 1st Congressional District who votes with them against his own district, when you have guys like Lee Zeldin who voted with them against New Yorkers in our SALT deductions, where homeowners and families have been hurt because of his vote, it's time to step up, say something, and be affirmative that he's got to go. He's definitely got to go.
Ryan, you said something about Monica Martinez. So there's some local elections that we care about and a ballot question. Can you give us a brief summary of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. So Monica, as John referenced, has been a stalwart for the working people of her district. We mentioned Quality King. Innovant is another employer where there's some challenges, also represented by UFCW 2013. And every step of the way, anytime Monica's been contacted, she's really stepped up. And unfortunately, just by nature of the district she represents, she's in a serious fight. She's got an opponent that really just does not believe in any of the things that we believe that are vital to meeting the needs of working people of the Senate, the 3rd Senate District. And so Monica, as an elected official, has been everything we could ask for and more. There are times where she, might not be certain on an issue, but she doesn't hesitate to reach out to the local union that would be directly affected by any policy decisions. And so we've really made a concerted effort to focus on the union membership in that district and make sure they know that that Monica's been a fighter for them. So from now until Election Day, we'll continue to be fighters for her. And then, outside of that, we have 2 congressional races here on Long Island that are super competitive in the 1st and 2nd Congressional District. And we have 2 fantastic candidates, and Nancy Goroff, a scientist who's really focused on facts and information and utilizing that to make decisions if and when she gets to Congress, and hopefully with our help. And then Jackie Gordon, who's one of us. She's been a union member for a long time. She's retired as a lieutenant colonel. And throughout 28 of her 30 years in the military was a military police officer. So I think she understands the needs of people from all walks of life, is dedicated to her community, and has been dedicated to public service. We couldn't ask for more than that out of our candidates and elected officials.
John just learned a valuable lesson about the people that work with him. One of them, namely me, can't see beyond the end of the table, So as we try to manage our discussion, we're trying to make certain that we get all the major things that we need to people to know as they go into this election. And one of them is a ballot question in Suffolk County. Ryan, can you just give us a quick one on what that will be about and what people should do?
Yeah, so I'll start with what people should do. Proposition 2, they should vote yes. Again, that's Proposition 2, they should vote yes. Why is that important? We're in really difficult financial times as a result of the federal administration's incompetence on COVID. It's really affected our economy, which directly affects funding and revenue for local government. And so Suffolk County Executive Steve Bellone has worked with the legislature to get creative to come up with some solutions to address the financial needs of the county. This proposition will allow the Suffolk County Executive to utilize funds that are sitting in the Assessment Stabilization Reserve Fund, so the ASRF, which is really just meant to prevent more than a 3% increase in sewer rates. Right, so this sounds technical. This sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, it does.
But I guess the best analogy I come up with is if a working American were about to be evicted, and they took excess money they had and threw it in their savings account instead of making a mortgage payment. That's what Suffolk County is doing right now. They're taking those dollars with voter permission. Right, so this ballot referendum allows the voters to decide. We don't want to get evicted. We don't want to throw those extra dollars in a savings account. We'd like to use them to shore up some challenges and prevent layoffs and make sure that the public employees can continue to go to work and provide vital services.
Vote yes.
Yeah,
Number 2.
The bottom line, that was a really excellent explanation. And you might have heard me giggle because I'm looking at him and he's giving me dirty looks as he's explaining this, which Ryan does a lot. He's not very respectful for somebody much older than him.
However, quite a bit older.
All right, that's enough out of you. All right, but the bottom line is that Proposition 2, we are urging our members and their families to vote yes. Talking about using those dollars to save jobs, to keep the Suffolk County government working, keeping the members of AME and others working to protect you, protect your families, protect the quality of life that we have here in Suffolk County. So this is a critical measure that has to be voted on. So, we're starting to come to the end of our podcast. And I just want to take a moment to say we are urging people to vote for Biden-Harris. But we are absolutely critical that you come out and vote. There are tens of thousands of people who gave their lives so that you and I have the privilege to go out and vote. And the long lines that have been shown so far, Saturday I was online 45 minutes ahead of time and I was a block and a half down. It was very encouraging. Go out and vote. Protect your right as citizens. Protect America by going out and vote. Roger, Ryan, any last words? We got a couple of seconds.
I'm just very excited at the possibility that the world's going to be a better place after Election Day if Joe Biden's elected. It's going to make a huge difference to not only us, but everyone around the globe.
Ryan,
I think you've heard it all from Roger and John. I'm just happy to be here. Thanks again, guys.
Again, thank you very much for joining us. This has been the Long Island Fed News with John Durso and Roger Clayman. Today's special guest, Ryan Stanton. It's a monthly podcast from the Long Island Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO. Thank you.